Welcome everyone to today's lesson where we will be learning about the internet and how it works. This will be our first lesson in this half term's new topic, which is all about the internet, and later on in the half term we're going to be learning how to create web pages and hopefully how to publish them as well. For this lesson, our targets are to understand how the internet works and know the different technologies that connect the internet together. So let's start off with a very brief explanation of what the internet is. The internet is a global, that means worldwide, computer network, right? So it is a global computer network which allows the computers that are connected to that network to share files, data, information, all sorts. So that's why, for example, you can view a website in America, you can view a website in or from Japan, because those files that exist, that data that exists on those computers which are connected to the network, can be shared between one another, obviously if they have the correct permissions. So to connect to this network, you will require a number of things. The first one is a computer. So let's say, for example, that we live in the UK here. So let's say this is our house here. Doesn't matter where in the UK. And in our house, we need a computer. So the first thing you will need is a device which can connect to the network. Now, it doesn't have to be a desktop computer. It could be a laptop, it could be an iPad, any tablet really. It could be a phone, even including some embedded devices like your fridge, for example, or if you have any type of technology at home which can connect to the internet. Let's just go with a computer for now, though. So a computer, the description for this, is a node which contains all the applications for the user. Without this device, you cannot access the information on the internet, neither can you make any sense of it. That's why you need the applications, the programs or the software, they all mean the same thing. The application on this computer, on this device, will make sense of the data to the user. So if you're visiting a web page, for example, you will need a web browser such as Chrome, Internet Explorer, even though that's not used as much nowadays. You will need something like Opera, you might use something like Firefox. All of these are web browsers. These are applications on your computer which allow you to make sense of the information that makes up the web page. You might also have an application like Skype, for example, which makes sense of audio and video data, and it presents to you with an image of the person that you're talking to, or it might present to you the audio of the voice of that person that you're talking to. So all of these applications on your computer excuse me, are required to be able for the user to understand what the data actually is. So the first thing we have is a computer. Now on this computer you will have something called a network card, right? So a network card is a piece of hardware which allows the node, the computer in this case, the device, to send and receive signals to and from the internet. Okay, so in some cases, if you have a desktop PC, you might have a little card inside it, and it allows you, for example, to link an Ethernet cable to it, and that Ethernet goes directly to something else we're going to talk about in a second. Or you might even have an antenna on your computer which sends and receives the signals of the internet. This is all done through a network card. So your device cannot be connected to the network, to the internet, if it doesn't have some hardware inside it which can receive and send the signals. Okay, so this is called a network card. And of course, if you want a cabled connection, you will use an Ethernet cable. If you want a wireless connection, you will use an antenna. The next part of this line is the router. So the router, again, is a piece of hardware which you might find in your house if you have an internet connection. It is a hardware which works as a gateway to the internet. So if you imagine a house that has a front lawn, for example, a front garden, you might have a gate at the front which allows access to your house. This is what the router does for your network at home. It works as a gateway for the rest of the world to come through to your house, or for you to leave your house and access the rest of the world. That's why it's called a gateway. Your computer can be found through this router. So if you didn't have this router in your house, the rest of the world wouldn't be able to send you information. They wouldn't be able to find you on this network. Neither would you be able to access the rest of the network. So all of these three things that we've spoken about all exist within your house. The next thing that we need to speak about is the ISP, or this is called the Internet Service Provider. Like so. Internet Service Provider. Now these guys are not in your home. They are in fact a company in your country which provide access to the network. Okay? And they usually mostly do it through monthly subscriptions. So you pay them a fee. For example, you might pay them £35 a month, and they allow you to use to gain access to the internet through their technology, through their means, which is obviously a little bit too advanced to understand at this point in time. We will cover those aspects later on in your education. All right, but what you need to understand about ISPs is that they provide the users with internet access. And a few examples of this in the UK, if you're watching this video from somewhere in the world, in the UK, you might have a company like BT, for example, or Virgin Media, or Sky, or even Zen, for example. There are plenty of companies which offer internet access. So let's say, for example, that the ISP, so the ISP for BT is located over here. Your router would be connected to your ISP, and that's how you will gain access. Now let's say there is another house here in the UK, like so, that has computers, and they're connected to their router. That router would be connected to the same ISP if they have a subscription to BT. If, for example, there is another ISP here, well, let's say they are Virgin Media, Virgin Media, like so, then anybody connected to the internet through the ISP Virgin Media, let's draw another house here with a computer inside it, these ISPs will be connected with one another. So let's say, for example, house 1, this is house 2, this is house 3. If house 1 wants to send a message to house 3 somehow through the internet, then they will access their router, which will access their ISP, which will send a message to the other ISP, which will send that data onto house 3. But let's say that in house 1 there is for example, another device which is connected, let's say a tablet, which is connected wirelessly to the router. Well, if in house 1 the computer wants to send a message to the tablet here, they don't have to access the ISP. The messages are sent simply through the router that connects them all. So these are sort of local area networks, which we will cover later on in another part of this lesson. Let's say, for example, you would like to contact someone in France here. Well, they would have a similar type of connection. So they would have a device, a node in their computer, in their homes, which will be connected to a router, which will be connected to an ISP. For example, I believe in France there's one called Free SAS, if I'm not mistaken, which will then be linked to other countries through cables that run underneath the water, which provide the connection between countries. So these countries will be connected through ISPs, which will be connected through the routers, which is the gateway, which will enter the home and deliver the data to the correct device. Now, of course, this is just a simplification of how it works. There are billions and billions of these connections across the world. As a matter of fact, let me show you on the next slide here. This is just a small section of what makes up the internet. You can see all of the different types of connections in this global network. This image was taken from Wikipedia, and it just shows how devices are connected on this network. You can see here on the bottom right hand corner these IP addresses, which we will cover next lesson. We'll talk about how these computers are addressed, how they're found on the network. But it is an amazing site. It's quite beautiful, in fact. It's sort of like art. Right, see you guys on the next part.